So let's start with this part, which is the most interesting. It is the response that goes from the server to the client to the browser. In fact, in there you will see that the HTTP response consists of two parts. The first part we already saw, seen. It is the header information, and in the header information you provide all the client-server related information. Embedded into the header information, embedded into the HTTP body, which starts with a header, is the HTML file. The HTML file is what the browser will render, as they say, and present it to you. Will parse it, and so this goes there, gives information. We will exploit headers a little bit in the next few slides, and then browser parses. It parses HTML, the head, pictures, and then he hits this command. It is. It says that this is an image, and the source is somewhere else. Okay. Your browser will create another HTTP request requesting the image that is indirectly embedded here. The source might be on, as you surely know, might be on a different server or in a different location, whatever. So, rendering, creation of another HTTP request, you wait or you don't wait, depends on the browser technologies, until your picture comes back, and then you display the full thing. That's how the response will work. Interrupt me if I'm going too fast or too slow. So, let's move to the request. We're on our way from the client to the server. You click on a page. Your browser creates an HTTP request. It is a GET request. There is an alternative, we will discuss it there. So, it is a GET request. It sends to the particular server that is related with that, and asking the server to please give me this page. The server has Apache, of course, and has what we have a container that helps where this particular file, applications, or whatever is located. So it gets and sends it back. The other alternative is to use again, click a button and sends an HTTP command. It is different command, get and post. Okay, and they're similar, but there are important differences between this. Get and post will be discussed in a while, but here we use get when we click one URL. Here we have post if we fill a form, user ID and password, and then we submit it. So this is post is related to some extent to a form that a user partially fills and sends it there, and get is simply a very simple request. Both these commands have parameters and should have parameters to facilitate this interaction. We will go even deeper in that with this example. So, let's say that you fill a form. We're restricted to the form case, which is the most interesting so far. I do a post, I do a login on that post. This is the version of HTTP that I'm using. And here is my username and my password. This information, through the post command, goes from the client to the server. Okay? The server replies, and replies with which version it is. It is a protocol, so we have to be sure that we are in accordance, these two are in accordance. So the version of HTTP, although it's boring and it's not the only one, is there. This is the success code. 200 is okay. And then it sets a cookie. We will discuss about cookies to the user. It is authenticated and it's card. Obviously, this form has to do with e-commerce. When you buy things, you put them in the cart and then you check out. So the cart is empty. Don't forget that we are at the introduction of the course, and during the introduction, I usually try to give you a feeling of the rest of the course. So cookies will be considered later on and in detail. But for the time being, it is worth to mention, although it will be repeated later on, it is worth to mention that the necessity of a cookie. Here I log in to buy something. Then I disconnect. I go around, fill my cart with things, and either I lose connection or I'll say, well, I'll buy it some other time. So I disconnect. Then I go and connect again, but again the server doesn't recognize who am I, because I might access this from my home, from a different browser, from a different location. So the only way, well, the clearer way to understand that I'm a returning customer, a particular returning customer that has done something in your site, is to provide me with a cookie. So next time I will come from the client to the server. We're talking about the same client here and there. I carry the cookie with me, and I'm recognized with my cookie. So log in to the server, user ID and password. I reply, a server replies with a cookie, and I access the server with the cookie provided, and I use both for the authentication through the cookie or user ID and password. So cookies don't, there is a misunderstanding about the word cookie. Cookie is not the cookie το μπισκότο, είναι the Chinese cookies, αυτά που είναι κλειστά και τα σπάς, κάπως εκεί. Υπάρχει, here is another example. I don't know how much you can read it, but let's see. It is a head. It is the header. I get OK. It is the current date, and all these are parameters, and these are parameters that it is part of the whole thing. It is not, they're not all the parameters. It is important here is what I get when I log out from my email account. I think this is what I have. And you can see that the domain is google.com. You can see a cookie with some IDs, a very long encoding for security reasons, when it expires, and so this is the server and so on. So this is a response, part of the response. Now, the question that we will also face is quite often in this course is which of the two particular ways of implementing one thing I should use. Here we have two commands. These are two HTTP commands. They essentially do the same thing. They send things to the web server. You can do what your work with either of them. Nevertheless, the true web programmer knows exactly which one to use and has no hesitation in selecting. If you have limited amount of characters to send to the server, then you do a get. You want to pass few bits, then use get. The get, one problem, it is very convenient, it is more efficient than post, of course, but unfortunately, it appends the information you get to the URL. Therefore, it is visible by anyone. So, if you are supposed to send a few characters, but these are your password, you don't use a get. Or if this amount of, if these characters are of importance to you, then you don't send it with get because it will be shown in the URL, as you will see. You cannot bookmark the form if you use post instead of get. You might, in fact, want that, but you cannot bookmark because everything is in. There is one rule, a golden rule that every web programmer uses. If the action you want to do is independent, do you understand what we usually can see? No? Independent is, I switched to real algebra, I told you. Function is called idempotent if and only if the function of x is equal to the function of x. In other words, the repeated action of this process, of this function, doesn't change things. If you apply an action to this data, and then you apply the same action, you get nothing more than what you originally get. I think you should have seen it in C++. You call a routine, you get something, you call again the routine on that result doesn't change. For example, getting the balance of your account is such a processing. You check the balance of your account as many times you wish, you get the same thing. But adding credit to your account, it is not a debit. It is a very, very important rule that very many people don't use it, unfortunately. So let's go and be a little bit more detailed and get the header of an HTTP GET request. So this is the GET request. You see how it gets. It is GET, the command. It is the path to where the application is. In fact, this application is an advisory system on selecting the beer. So you go to select beer taste JSP, and then I'm searching for a beer with dark color and multi taste. I don't know what this is. And this is the version of this. So this is a GET request. It is idempotent in the sense that as many times you do this command, you get the same kind of beers. And all these are the headers. Notice, this is the host. And notice the difference of the host and the path to the application. This host, this server, let's call it host, might accommodate more than one application. In fact, thousands of applications in cases. So it gives information about the server or the client, I'm not sure. So about the browser, the operating system, macOS, and so on. These are various parameters that I do not remember, or formatting things. The language that accepts, the encoding, the character set, and you keep the connection alive. We will discuss that. So, GET request, notice this one here. Okay? Let's go to the POST request. The POST request is almost the same, but now the parameters that you want to post to the server, to pass it to the server, it is not on the header, it is not in the URL, it is inside the HTTP request. The rest are the same, and they have to be the same. It isn't worth to go deeply on that, but let's comment a little bit here. So, the browser, this is a response. Therefore, the browser renders that and parses that. It gets a session ID with a cookie and so on, and recognize that the content, it is text and HTML. Therefore, it goes and activates the rendering procedure of your browser. It renders and presents it to you. This might be, if the content is something else, like a picture, there is nothing to render the picture. You simply put it on the screen in a way that the browser, the designer of the browser, uses it. Let's put it all together, and this is the URL. You hit it, okay? And this is the form, in fact. vir1.html, it is the page that contains the form and the button submit. Okay? You hit submit, you fill the thing, you hit submit, and your browser issues a GET request. It goes to the server, host, and the host checks this file and responds by setting cookies and so on. So this is the response. It is the HTML. It creates HTML either on the fly or use a pre-existing form to return. And this is the HTML that returns. It is passed by renders, as they say, by the browser. And this is the result that you get. It says beer login page and the two beers that are associated with your selection on that page. Obviously, due to the limited space of the presentation, not all details are shown on the pictures, of course, but only the essential ones. And there are a few other things that are not shown. Any questions? I think we got enough about HTTP. We need to make a few things clear, and we finish for today. URLs, you know about IPs. We discussed it last time. These are let's talk about URLs. It's a unified resource locator. Resource is an abstract idea. It can be any kind of application, page, whatever. So any kind of application needs to have a URL, and this URL, it's its address, how you can get it. It might be address of different type, public address, or a PO box, an address that is not public in some sense. But anyhow, this is the HTTP, as you probably know. This is the server. That's the port. 80 of the server. We will discuss, we will give one slide with ports next. And this is the path that it is shown in the get in the get command that you see here. So we have, this is the anatomy of URL. HTTP, you specify HTTP. That's the IP of the server that knows how to answer your question. That's the port where you should go through, or you are allowed to go through. And this is the internal path to the server that is related to your application. Build selection, for example. This, again, this server might have several applications in there that might come, that are available, presumably from different ports and surely from different paths. Talk about ports for a couple of minutes. Ports is a number, it's a 16-bit number, which is which identifies the particular application that the program to the hub. These ports are reserved, you cannot use them. And the system administrator controls these ports. Usually, the 80 port, which is the HTTP, it's the only open port available. Well, there are some crazy people that even they close the HTTP port, the 80 port, but if your machine has one port open, this should be the 80. It is secure. Then you see other protocols, file transfer protocols that go through other ports, and 443 is the secure version of HTTP, which we will not comment. It's concerns about security. That's POP3, you probably know from your email. And there are several other ports. You specify your own port if you wish. We will see some more details about that. But system programmers are very sensitive about the ports, and they have full control, and nobody can blame them. It is much more easier to pass, if you want to hack something, it is much more easier to pass things through these ports than 80 port. 80 is considered to be the most secure port of the common other port. We will discuss this thing probably later on. Now, the course essentially starts here. It's a programming course. We learn the technology, we learn the practices, the culture, but the course starts over here. This is the Apache file system. And talking about Apache file system, you recognize that we play the role of the server. Every server needs to have their web server running. Apache is what we consider in this course. The Apache has a particular structure of the file system. And it is the home, htdocs, and then there are applications underneath it. So when you will come with a put or get request, then you pass through that. This is the index that it helps the location of the particular application, and these are the paths. This is one application, gives advices about the scheme, and that's another application, the one considered before, that advices about your beer. And underneath, as you see, there is select and there are index files for each application. So there is a structure that Apache is based on, and you have to absolutely respect the structure. And although you see, now it contains HTML files, it also contains Java files, JavaScript files. We will restrict it to Java and we will talk about the file system in detail later on. As we go deeper into our course, we have to make sure that we distinct dynamic from static content. This is a static content. This page doesn't change, as you see. Therefore, if you request something, if you request this page, then the web server simply needs to know the location of that file. Goes, get the file, you embed it in the HTTP message and send it. No problem. If, of course, the time is not always 420, if you want to have the time, the actual time, the real time, that means that what you are going to send, this server is going to send to the client information that is not a priori available. It is not always ready. You generate that in many ways, that content on the fly. So the web server gets a request for current time. It goes and parses this HTML and hits insert time server. This is another application for your Apache server, and it requires this. It fires up this application. This application is somewhere in the file system. In fact, it is in a particular place in your file system, so he is able, by hitting that, to recognize that it is, this is the application, it fires up, and this application goes and writes the time there. So this is the content that it is half-baked, but it needs to dynamically updated, and then this file, after updated by the application, will be returned to the client. So we are mainly interested in, of course, in dynamic content. Static content, it is not that important anymore. And as the time passes, very few content is static. Wikipedia, maybe it is static. But for this course, dynamic content is our concern. I simply repeat what I've said before. Dynamic pages do not pre-exist, but they come alive when a request comes. And this complicates things a little bit. The request comes since you ask for another application to provide the information needed. The other application creates the answer. It is embedded. The application's answer is embedded into the HTML. The HTML into HTTP and passed to the client. Now, the previous procedure, it is not very difficult. You might have a scripting language that implements that. When a message comes in, I do this, and then I do that, and then I embed that. That's pretty easy things to do. So we are talking about CGIs. CGIs are files. There are programs that are most commonly isolated. There are standalone programs, and they are written in a scripting language. Scripting language, it is a very big success, and here is an example. It is written in Perl, very nowadays old scripting language, but carried the scientific community for several decades, and this is what it prints some variables and nothing else. So scripting. There are other scripting languages, but the idea is this. The client goes to the web server. Now, the web server has a box. And inside this box, things are very organized. Inside this box, you may fire up applications, you may create content, and you may add things to the content. Therefore, here it comes, it goes to the web server. The web server creates an entity that contains the parameter, goes to the helper application, the one that gives the time in the previous example. This helper application might not be running at that time. So multi-threading is an issue, and managing this multi-threading is also an issue. So somehow you create a thread if this application is not up. You create a thread, you fire it up, works, and then gives back, and so on. Therefore, we are not talking about finding a file. We're talking about having a framework, you might call it a middleware, a whole framework that creates processes, fires it up, passes parameters, gets files, and maybe building workflows in some sense. So this box, we call it container, and it is the additional to the Apache technology. It is part of the Apache, in fact, in some sense, that is very essential for dynamic content, therefore essential for modern web pages. So, don't panic if you don't understand what's happening in this box. This is what will bother us for the next 2 months almost. Notice that this is the container. This is Tomcat that I will ask you to install, and we will detail that. This environment, as described here, it is for non-Java approach. These are the scripting languages that are prominent in the web world. Personally, I like Python most. Then comes Perl. C, it's too much. PHP is dead. Flash is dead. Well, PHP is not dead. Most of the pages are in PHP, but I expect it to die very soon. Python, it's absolutely the future. I will stop here asking if you know anything, any web technology that is built on Python. Anybody knows something important on the web that is built on Python?
Google maybe.
I
think Google is done in Python.
Something else? The first major application in Python was Skype. Then now I don't believe that now it's in Python too, but Skype when first originated by students not much older than you in the Baltic countries, it was in Python, and they were the first to use it in Python. Anybody else remembers any Python-based it's I'll provide an article on explaining what Python might offer to you. But our situation here is that we will ignore these scripting languages. We are, according to Lalis and Antonopoulos and other people, hardcore programmers in our soul. So we will go for the Java approach to the web development. So we will start next week with orienting us to the Java thing, and we will not play with these very good technologies, but either old, time, energy consuming, monolithic, very low level, pretty old. Python is something that you want to consider, but I'll stop here and see you on Tuesday.